So I'd like to introduce Renee Bookout, college admissions advisor, founder of the Academic Center for Testing in Florida, and mom of 3 college graduates.
Thank you so much for having me on the program. It's a pleasure.
So, Renee, you as a mom of 3 kids who've already are in college or graduated college, I'd love to hear your personal story. So your son graduated from Harvard and your daughters attended Vanderbilt and Wake Forest. Can you tell us a little bit about your personal journey as a parent and how you supported your kids in terms of succeeding at school and developing their talents?
Sure. So I grew up in Michigan, which is known for having a very good school district. I attended the University of Michigan, where I met my husband. The Navy brought us to Pensacola, Florida, and we made education really our number one decision when we got out of the military, where we were going to raise our children. And we wanted a school system that really supported the children and that was inviting to the families, because I believe and have always believed that parental involvement in their children is critically important. I have teachers in my family. I have a sister, 2 brother-in-laws. They do an excellent job, but I believe the role of the parent is critically important. From a very young age, we read to our children. We started out, they got one book based on their age. And trust me, when they started to hit 5, 6, and 7, and you put them to bed at night, it took a long time. But I'm a firm believer that reading to children, vocabulary is instrumental to their growth as human beings and to their educational drive. It opens so many doors for them. My middle one, my son, whom you mentioned, became a voracious reader. And in fact, when some of his peers and younger students would ask him, "How did you get into Harvard?" he said, "I read." And I think that, my work that I do at the Academic Center for Testing has proved that the strongest readers are, in fact, the best test takers. Fast forward to, 10 years ago when my oldest was applying to colleges and I knew nothing about the process. When I applied for colleges, I sharpened a pencil to take the ACT. That was about the extent of it. But we made a lot of mistakes. And the good news for your elementary, middle school, even some of your high school parents who are tuning in, you're way ahead of where I was. And really, knowledge is power. And that's what I learned in this process. And I vowed to learn everything I could learn to help my next 2, which, the landscape had changed tremendously from when I had gone through the process to even when my first, second, and then my third went through the process. But one of the things I really tried to emphasize for my children and for the children that I work with is to follow your passion, whatever it is. Don't build a resume. Follow your passion and your resume will follow. And I think that that served all 3 of my children very well. They all had different strengths, different weaknesses. But by doing what they enjoyed, what they loved, that came through in their applications. That came through in the work that they did, the community service that they did. And I think that made them better human beings and I guess better candidates for the colleges as well.
Well, can you give us a little bit more details and more tips in terms of you have 3, I'm sure 3 different kids with 3 different strengths, 3 different interests, 3 different talents. How did you manage to, first of all, see those talents and nurture them? You talked a lot about reading, of course, and that's very early grades. What were you doing towards the end of elementary school, in middle school with your children?
So even during middle school, when my children would have reading assignments, I love to read and I wanted to foster in them that continued love of reading. And so we would do a book club, and whatever they were reading for their middle school class, I would try to read along with them. And then we'd have a discussion because I recognized that, each of my children learned differently as well. Some were kinesthetic learners, some might have been visual or auditory learners. And so what I tried to do was, make tools available to them that played to those strengths. So one of the things that I always encourage families to try to do, and children outgrow or they grow into or out of different ways of learning, but try to identify, and there are great tools that are available out there, try to identify how does your child learn? Is your child, a visual learner, in which case, flashcards are fabulous. Is your child a kinesthetic learner, in which case, don't try to tie them to a chair. Let them walk around the room. Maybe they have to have that music playing in the background. So I think as parents, if we can help our children identify how they learn best, and then we work with them on those skill sets, to develop both their own learning tools, but also maybe to expand those learning tools through reading clubs with them, through doing flashcards with them, to introducing them to things that they might not otherwise be introduced to in the classroom. One of my favorite things to do with my children when they were in elementary and middle school was take science into the kitchen, and we would cook. And I had them measuring, I had them, let's try adding more of this instead of less of this and see what would happen, and allowing them to fail. And I think that's very important, whether that's in the kitchen, in life, in the classroom. We learn more from our failures, as we all know, than we do from our successes. And I think failing in a safe environment where, they've got that nest to fall back on, they've got a soft place to land in mom or dad's lap, is really important. And so I challenged them in the kitchen to fail. I challenged them, in their outdoor activities. If they weren't comfortable playing soccer, we weren't going to give it up. We were just going to do the best we could, get through the season, maybe shift gears, after the season, but learn something from it, whether that was just how to be a good teammate and sit on the sidelines.
Thank you for watching. If you're enjoying this, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss future videos.